Okay guys, so finally time for some tile, and we've got the shower waterproofed, as you saw in that previous section, but using the Curdy board and everything, it makes it nice for your tile layout, which is your first kind of step in the process. So it's important to kind of get your tile laid out, and each tile is going to be different based on the size and the format and the design that you're going for. But what we're using here is a 4x16. So nominal length is a little bit less than 16 inches, about 15 5/8. So you want to lay out your pieces. I guess if you're going with a brick half 50% offset, where you will offset at your 50% mark on each line or on each row. Where you're doing a 30% offset and offsetting it a little bit more, or if you're doing just a straight stack all the way up. But you want to lay them out in a way that it gives you good links, at least in my opinion, links in each corner. So you don't necessarily want to have a teeny tiny little sliver there in the corner when you're starting that new row on the other wall. So it's important to kind of lay it out in a way where you get everything where you want it, and your corners are nice, good sizes. So I'm going to do a 50% offset, which would leave about a third of a piece at each corner. So here I will have about a 2-inch piece starting on this end, which I wouldn't want to go any smaller than that. It kind of makes it tricky. But I tried laying it out in different ways, and it was kind of coming out the same way no matter how I had tried the equation. But we're going to do a 50% offset. So you'll see I've got my center mark on this wall, so everything is equal on both sides. And then I've got my laser set on that center mark. So I know where I'm running level here at the tub. And then I know, starting that next row, where I need to line everything up. So I like to spend some time. It takes a little bit of time to lay everything out, but it's better to take the time up front than have to compensate for it and correct your tile layout as you're doing it. So get everything where you want it. Lay it out. If you have a laser, I would always recommend using the laser. You can also see I've marked my plumb line all the way up, so that I always have that reference as I'm tiling along with the laser. So tomorrow when I come back to make sure that my laser is on that same point, I always just go ahead and draw that plumb line all the way up. It gives you a good reference point as you're laying your tile. So everything is waterproofed. This is kind of where we're at. Filled all the screw holes, and we're ready to start tiling. So you'll see I don't have a shower valve seal like I do down here at the tub and the valve, but I'll seal that up once we get to that point. I don't know that it's necessary, but better safe than sorry, so I'll do that once we get closer to that point. So let's start laying some tile. Okay guys, so in prepping your tile, you've got your layout and you are ready to start setting some tile. I'm going to be using a 3/16 by 3/16 square notch trowel. Your notch size is going to depend on your tile size. So the larger format tiles, the larger your notch needs to be, so that those notches will lay down when you're compressing your tile and everything has good adhesion and that kind of stuff. But for the 4x16, the 3/16 trowel should be just fine. We're using the Schluter all set. Like I said in the previous section when I was prepping everything for the Curdy board, I tend to use the all set because it's kind of universal when it comes to the Schluter products. You can use it for their membranes, tile setting, all that kind of stuff, and you don't have to second guess whether you're using the right thin set. So I'm using the white all set, and got my layout and center line set. I'm going to go ahead. I usually start on this back wall, and as I'm going, when I have my corner pieces that are cut, I will, since I'm not going to be doing that wall at the same time, I will number on the back the row number as I'm going up, so that tomorrow when I come back to set, or the next day whenever I come back to start on that wall, I know which piece corresponds to each row. Obviously you don't necessarily have to do that if you're tiling all the way around all 3 walls at the same time. You just continue to run your consecutive rows, and you don't need to set these cutoffs aside. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I've got my tile cutter down here. I'm hoping that I'll be able to just dry cut, score and snap everything, assuming these will cut nicely. I'm going to be doing a 50% offset, running all the way up, and yeah, that's about it. So let's start laying some tile. so there you go, guys. Once you get that first row set and you get everything level, just like building a house, the foundation is the most important part. If you don't get that first row nice and level, then that's gonna have a ripple effect all the way up the wall. So make sure you get that first row nice and straight and level, and then it's pretty straightforward and smooth sailing from there on out. But you can see these are the horseshoe spacers that I like to use. The smaller wedges, I've got those too, but they aren't really as helpful. I kind of use those when I need some extra spacing, but I don't want to do a full 16th. So I'm doing 16th grout line. But yeah, we're gonna keep chugging along here. As you'll see in the time lapse, I kind of just trowel about a foot or so. That'll give me about 3 rows, so that the thin set stays fresh. And then I'll back butter each piece and set them in there. So the score and snap is working out pretty well. Not leaving as smooth of an edge as I would prefer. That glazing is usually the tricky part. It'll kind of crack and flake off of the edge, but there on the inside corner, that's not necessarily a huge issue because that's all going to be caulked, and with those overlapping joints, it's not going to be noticeable at all. But once we get out here to the edge and we're running it up to our rondac trim, I'll have to take the polishing pad to each edge and kind of clean it up so each edge has a nice crisp finish on it. But we're going to keep ticking along and yeah, follow along.
Don't want to mislead, this is all you need. Be your everything, yeah, I'll be your everything. Still too soon to feel, please just say it's real. More than just a thrill, not just in it for the thrill. I'm in it for the love, cause love it needs to touch it. You're pressing on my body, babe, let me tell you something. I'm in it for the love, cause love it needs to touch it. You're pressing on my body, babe, let me tell you something. I'm in it for the love, I'm in it for the love, I'm in it for the love, I'm in it for the love.
All right, guys, so there we got it. Got it all done, at least for that back wall. You'll see that laser really helps keep everything lined up there in the middle. That middle seam running all the way up. I did this first half yesterday. Got a late start today, but I got the second half done. So as I was saying before, my cutoffs on all these, I just number them. So you'll see 20 left. So that's going to be my top row here on this left side, and so on. So I got my right side, so that when I come back to do each of these side walls, I know which piece I need to start with for each row. You can measure and cut new pieces, but you're saving some scraps. You know what piece corresponds with each row. So probably move on, start this back wall now, and then we'll move on and get the valve wall done, and hopefully be done tiling this week and move on to the floor, maybe even get the floor done. But that's it for now on that one wall. So time to get ready and start the others. All right, guys, so on this shower, I'm going to be using Rondak trim. So it's a style of trim from Schluter for your tile transitions. So on this vertical transition here, where we're transitioning from our tile to our just painted drywall, it's a metal transition piece. They come in a number of different finishes, but they actually go behind the tile. So after I've set these first two rows on my ends, I like to go ahead and get that Rondak trim just tacked in place, so that I know that it's going to fall where it needs to, and also so that this thin set can cure. I only ran the thin set up to here so that this can still move, so that I can adjust it as I go. But I do have in here, I've tacked it in with just stainless steel screws, just a couple at each end. So once I get it plumb, I tack it in, and it still has some wiggle room. So as I'm working my way up the wall, I can tweak it just a hair if I need to. And I'm securing it with the Schluter, the Curdy Fix, which is the same adhesive. This stuff is super strong, and so I'll just as I move up and I get things set where I need it, I'll secure it with that adhesive. And also this seam here, I'll seal up as I go, so that everything is waterproof out past this tile, or I guess to that drywall. But if you're getting, because I'm going to run my tile out a good about six or so inches past the tub, so that's more than plenty, in my opinion. When you're waterproofing that edge, if you're getting water out past your tile here, to the point where it's saturating your wall and saturating back behind that tile all the way out there, then something isn't right, and you're not doing something right. But so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna call it a day. I've got this back wall finished up. I wanted to at least get these first two rows set so that those can cure overnight, and when I go to set the rest of the wall, those are already cured and it's nice and firm. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Since I didn't do it that way on that back wall, I just continued to tile up. But I mean, when you're setting on the tub and the tub is nice and secure and level, you don't necessarily have to worry about, in my opinion at least, you don't have to worry about setting that that first row. Or some people even set a board level and run their tile off of that, and then they'll come back in and fill that first row in, just so that everything isn't all that weight is not bearing down on a foundation that hasn't been set. But in my opinion, that tub is enough of a foundation where it's not going to move if you're setting you know, half a dozen or a dozen rows of tile on it. And if it is moving, then something's not going right. But I'll let these 2 rows cure overnight so that everything is rock solid when we come back in the morning. Then hopefully I can get these 2 walls knocked out tomorrow, get my Rondac trim set, and then that will be it as far as setting tile for the shower portion. Then I will probably tile the floor, so that when everything is ready to be grouted, since I'm using the same grout on the walls and the floor, I can just go ahead and grout everything all at once and kind of save us a day there. But yeah, it's coming along nicely. We'll get this these other 2 walls done, and we'll call it done for the tile shower. All right, guys, so it's time to start tiling the side walls, and I'm going to do the fixture wall first. So a couple of tips, or what I like to do. So you'll see I've got my back wall all the way done. I've got my spacers out. Everything's nice and cured. Last night, before I went home, I put these 2 first rows on the side wall so those can cure. So those are nice and level and set, so that everything that I'm building on top of that will be nice and level as well. So one thing, obviously, you'll see I put in this piece of plywood. I just keep this around for every bathroom that I do. I cut it to size so that it fits over your standard tub. I've got foam strips underneath where it sits on that tub surface, so it's not going to damage the tub surface. And then on this front side, I also just put a couple of hand towels just to protect it there. So I like to keep this piece of plywood on here just as a work surface, and for once you get up higher. Obviously you don't need it, and I didn't use it there on the back wall, but it's nice to have that work platform once you get up there to the top. And also it kind of just serves as a workbench. So everything is right where you need it. I've got all my cutoffs and row starters there on each side, and I'll just keep a box of tile there so that I have it, no bending down or anything to get it off the floor. And then it also gives me a platform to put my laser on so that I have a nice plumb line and a seam to work off so that I know everything is running nice and straight all the way up. So you'll see this first piece, my row starter, I've just got set in there. And I did that because I'm going to have to make a hole cut on this next one for the tub spout. So I went ahead and marked. You'll see there on the edges I've marked. And then I've just used a square, got my cut area that I need to cut. So next I'm going to be using a diamond hole saw for the angle grinder, and I'll show you how I do my hole cuts. Okay, so here is the angle grinder that I'm going to be using. It's a cordless, so it's nice for all these bathroom applications where you don't necessarily want to plug stuff in. I know not everybody has a cordless grinder, but you can also use, they've got hole cutting bits for drill attachments. I prefer to like the grinder ones best. So they're diamond hole saws. This is 1 3/8 inch, so that should be plenty big for the tub spout and everything. So what we're gonna do, you can, I usually just use them dry. I know some people like to wet cut everything. So you'll see I've got my piece that I need cut in my square. So I'm going to turn on my vacuum because it can get a little dusty. But I'll kind of just work in at an angle, and then once I've got my perimeter set on my hole, I'll kind of work it around and then just drill down through, and you'll feel it go once it's all the way through. So here we go. All right, so there you go. Makes pretty clean cuts, even just doing it dry. So that's what I do for my shower holes. Obviously for the larger holes, like my shower valve, I'll use a tile blade. So I know there's numerous different brands out there, and there's continuous rim, there's mesh rim. Since I'll only be doing the one cut, you don't need anything fancy. But a tip on this, so your usually your, at least on the Schluter valves, your tile blades are the same diameter as your valves there. So when you're making your cuts, you can kind of use your blade as a template, so that you know everything is centered. And then when you're making those cuts, you can kind of just roll it as you do your cut to give you a nice circle, and everything will give you the perfect size that you need if you just use your blade as your guide. So I'll also be using that on the angle grinder, and we won't be doing that until we get up here to the valve, but I'll show you how to do that if I remember. But yeah, so if I measured correctly, this will fit right like that, and we'll get it set, and then we'll do the same thing up at the shower head. But those are going to be the only 3 cuts that I have to make. There at the tub spout, at the valve, and then up at the shower head. So I want to get this first wall done. Since I do have to make those cuts, it might take me a tad bit longer, and then we'll move over here and do the just this back wall. So on this back wall, I'm going to be doing the Schluter shelves. So those should fit right in my grout lines, assuming everything lines up right. And I'll show you how I apply those and get those set once we get to that as well. So okay guys, so this is what I was talking about when I mentioned polishing the edge of these cuts. So I've set it up in a way where I'm going to end on a half piece here. So I'm going to have a cut edge every other row. So on this cut, you can kind of see where that glazing kind of flakes and chips as you use your score and snap. So what I'm going to do, there are these polishing pads. It's just a Velcro polishing pad that you can get for your angle grinders. So this brand is called Polish Surf. There's numerous different brands, but it's just a high grit diamond polishing pad. And I'm just going to take it over that edge and just kind of bevel it like your factory cut edge there, so that when I go to grout this in, the grout will lay nicely and it won't fill those chips, because that's where you normally see that, especially when you have a high contrasting tile and grout combination. I just recently did my bathroom, and I did a white tile with a black grout, which I regret because I didn't polish those edges like I should have. And you can kind of see in some spots where that grout has filled that chipped area. So hopefully I'm going to eliminate that using these polishing pads. Just going to round that top edge so it looks like a factory cut edge with that nice rounded bevel there, so that when I go to grout it in, it looks natural and it doesn't, you can't see those little minuscule chips along that cut edge. So we're gonna give it a try. Hopefully that helps. So here we go. Okay guys, so it's time to put the first of these two shelves in here. So I've got, it's going to go right here in this joint, and then I'm going to do another one up here. But for this first one, you'll see on here, it's got these tabs. And they are 1/16 inch wide, so they fit right in your grout line. And on my joint where this shelf is going to slide in there, I've just put little dots so that I know where those tabs are going to hit. So super easy. You just take some of your Fix adhesive. I'm just going to put a little bit right there on each of those spots. Some right here. Some over here on this one. Now on this side, on this back wall, since that's the wall I'm tiling right now, this joint is not cured. The back wall of the shower is cured. I did that yesterday. So once you've got your adhesive, you'll just go in, get it where you want it. I'm going to put it on this side that is not fixed yet, and then just push it in so that it's nice and secure. And make sure that your tile is sitting on top of those tabs. And then once you've got it where you want it, you'll see that excess adhesive on there. So you'll get that nice and secure. So you'll see that this side is still kind of pushing up. So I like to just put a box of screws or something that has a little bit weight of it on it to just keep that down. But I found that these isopropyl alcohol wipes, that's usually what I use to clean up silicone and that kind of stuff. So these work really well for cleaning up this excess, because you don't want to let that sit on there for very long, because once it's on there, it's there to stay. So you just go ahead, wipe off that excess. It doesn't take much for that stuff to hold. Super strong. And then once you come back and you're caulking everything, you'll caulk all on this line, so that'll help secure it as well. So just get as much of the excess off of there as you can. And in doing so, it's wiping away those marks that I put on there just for reference, so I knew where to put the adhesive. So I'm sure you could do this as you are grouting, and just use your grout as your adhesive, since it's kind of just like a friction fit in that joint. But I like to use the Fix just so that I know it's not going anywhere. Make sure the surface is clean and down below is clean, because the only thing that's taking that Fix off once it's cured is a razor, and you don't want to take a razor to your tile if you don't have to. So yeah, everything looks good down below. Like I said, when you go to caulk all that, it'll look good, and that caulk will help secure it as well. So I'm just going to throw a couple boxes of these screws on there. just to give it some weight and hold it down. Make sure this tile's where you want it. So yeah, that should be good. And then once we get up here to this next row, I'll do another one. But that's about it for those Schluter shelves. So those they've got them in different patterns. They've got floral and a whole bunch of different finishes to go with your shower finishes. So pretty simple way to just add some functionality to the shower if you're not doing a niche or anything like that. I've used these shelves multiple times before, so they look really cool and sleek, and they also add some functionality to the shower and gives you a spot to put your soaps and everything. So that's how you do the shelf. Back to the tiling.
Let me open up your dream. We were ordering some treats. You said it would be alright. I tried to stop you, asking why. You started out to face it. My heart went off like crazy. You placed your arms on my head. We fell into my small bed. You started out to face it. My heart went off like crazy. I felt my breath was taken. We were about to make it.
Alright guys, so it's time to start grouting the shower and the floor. I'm going to do the shower first, and I'm going to do the upper half first, just because I've still got my platform here on the tub that'll make things easier for me to work on that top half. So we're going to be using Power Grout from Tech. It's what I've used in the past and it's worked out well. So it's color is sterling, so it's like a silver. So we're going to be using that. And the grout float I like to use are these I don't know if they're like a polypropylene or what the actual material is, but it's really flexible rubber. So that's what I'm going to be using. I like these as opposed to the more firm gum floats that they make. So I've been using that for a while and I really like it. So first order of business is going to take a wet sponge and wipe down the walls, get some of there's still a little bit of the thin set on there from when we were tiling. So just going to get everything clean, make sure there's no thin set coming through the grout joints that are going to prevent the grout from going in. And so we're going to clean out some of those spots real quick, wipe everything down, get it looking good, and then we're going to get messy and spread some grout on it. So here's the process. I'm going to do the upper half first, then I'll take my platform out so that I can get down around the tub surface, and then eventually I'm going to move down. We'll sweep off the floor and get that clean as well, and then we'll move down and do the floor. So I like to do it that way. If I'm grouting, I like to just do it all at once so that I can just mix it and have it and work through that bucket. Obviously, after you grout everything, you got to be more careful. If you're walking on the floor, you just got to make sure that you're not walking on those grout joints that are still curing. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so I've got my grout mixed up, and one tip that you'll see me doing as I'm grouting in the corners, I'm going to take my 12-inch drywall knife, and as I'm grouting on one side, I will hold this drywall knife in that seam to prevent, when I'm pushing that grout in, to prevent it from closing in on that corner seam. I want to leave that open so that I can go back and caulk it. Since it is like a movement joint, you want to keep that open and caulk it as opposed to just filling it with grout. Since your grout is going to harden, it's not going to allow that movement for the tile. So you'll see me doing that. So I'll hold the drywall knife in one hand and I'll work my grout in while this is in that joint, and then that'll prevent, you may still have a little bit of clean out to do when you go to caulk, but that'll prevent that whole seam from getting mashed full of grout. So you'll see me doing that, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. If you got your grout mixed up to the right consistency, I only mixed up half a bag, so that, I mean, the grout usually goes a long way, especially when you're only doing the large format tiles. You've got fewer seams. So I'll see how far this half bag takes me on this, and then we'll move on to the floor after we get the shower done. So. Alright guys, so I'm started caulking the shower. As you'll see, I've got the tub all taped off. I like to tape some of the fixtures off and that kind of stuff, just to give nice crisp lines when I go to remove those. It'll leave nice clean caulk lines. I do the same on the shelves. And the corner joints, I do not do that usually though, just because all those corner joints, it can kind of, when you're caulking, work back behind the tape. So what I'll do on those, I'll go ahead and lay a thick bead of caulk in there, and then I will spray it before wiping it with this glass cleaner. So this is just ammonia-free foaming glass cleaner. I'll caulk it, spray it real lightly with this, and then I'll use my caulking tool to wipe it down, and it should leave a nice clean line. So the glass cleaner basically prevents, once you lay your caulk on there and you spray it, it prevents that caulk when you wipe it from sticking to the sprayed areas. So it's an easy way, an easy tip I saw a while back, and creates nice clean lines there on the uneven surfaces where you've got your grout lines. So I'm going to be using the color match caulk to match my grout, color sterling. And then at the top I used just a white so that it kind of blends in with my ceiling. Looks nice up there, so I already did that one as well. So we'll move down and do these corners in the tub, and then we'll call the shower done. One tip, I do like to use these caulking tools. This rubber head has different radius depending on the width of the caulk joint that you want. So it's got a real small 1/8, and then you can go up a little bit wider if you need a thicker bead. So I do like this, and it's got a metal cleaning and a little scraper at one end. They're relatively inexpensive. Once they get built up and used up, you can kind of just dispose of them and get a new one. So I do like using these the old-fashioned way, using your finger. It works just as well sometimes, but keeps your fingers nice and clean. And this, since it's got a longer reach on it, you can kind of get back into corners where you can't necessarily fit your hand. So that's another reason I do like these. So you can find these pretty cheap at your home stores. So I do recommend those. But we're going to go ahead and caulk the rest of this and then call the shower done and move on to putting in some finishes. Okay guys, so in caulking the shower fixtures, so I'm going to be caulking the tub and the handle here. And just a quick tip on these fixtures, I'm going to be using a clear silicone. So I've got everything taped off. Should give me a nice 1/8 inch or so caulk line there. But on the fixtures, you want to make sure that you're not caulking over this this weep hole here, and the tub spout has it as well. It's behind the tape, but so on your fixtures, make sure that you're not caulking that hole. That allows water, if it does get down behind that escutcheon plate, it allows water to drain out. So make sure that you're not caulking over that. Otherwise, if a seal, if your caulk line were to break or something there on the top and water were to get behind that, it would not have a way to drain out. So just a quick tip there, make sure that you're not caulking over that. It's okay to caulk down here on the bottom, but just do not caulk over that weep hole so that any water, if it does get behind that that plate, which at some point I'm sure it will, once your caulk line breaks or something like that, you just want water to have a way to get out. So quick tip there, we're gonna go ahead and caulk these fixtures and then we'll call the shower done.